Zambia Industrial and Credit Bank coupon interest under collateral. The amount is 2,540,712 kwacha 33 ngwe. Microfin loan refundable 1,220,576 kwacha 98 ngwe. And disbursed house loans 1,742,482 kwacha 56 ngwe. Other suppliers 3,386,827 kwacha 13 ngwe. Total amount for 2022, total movement 8,890,599. Chair, I move to page 6. The Zambia Industrial Credit Bank coupon interest under collateral. This was interest on government bonds received on behalf of Zambia Industrial and Commercial Bank and was transferred back to the bank, Zambia Industrial Credit Bank, in the year 2023. See Appendix 1. The next, Chair, is microfin loan refundable. These are microfin loans which were overdeducted from the members during the period and payable to members upon provision of account details. Going forward, funds intends to minimize these cases by integrating its system with government payroll and financial institution for seamless data exchange. The next bullet, Chair, is undisbursed house loan. These are mortgage entitlements which were not disbursed during the period under review and will be disbursed on the availability of funding. As at 31st December 2023, 1,324,281 had been settled. Other suppliers, these relate to services that are contracted and committed by the fund at the end of the year, for which services are yet to be delivered or performed. Payments are made as and when services are delivered or performed. As at 31st December 2023, 3,019,672 kwacha 6 ngwe had been settled. Chair, under C is the next audit query. Staff matters, indebtedness of former PSPF employees. A review of files revealed that 13 employees who separated from the institution between 2013 and 2021 were still owing the fund's amount totaling 11,522,935 in respect of loans obtained while they were in service. In the period under review, there were 5 employees who were made redundant, 3 resigned, and 5 were dismissed. At its first extraordinary board meeting of the first quarter 2022 held from the 27 to 28 January 2022, the board considered the report of the appeal cases from the former PSPF employees who were declared redundant, and during this meeting the board resolved as follows. Former employees of the fund separated by way of redundancy and had the outstanding mortgages balance whose full recovery will result in the former employees forfeiting their packages should be paid part of the redundancy package to avoid destitution, and the following should apply. First bullet, a former employee whose mortgage had been discharged and the title released should not be eligible to be paid, and management should engage individual former employees to agree on the payment plan to liquidating the remaining outstanding debt to the fund. Chair, I move to page 7. However, a review of records revealed that 3 employees who were supposed to be paid redundancy package in amount totaling 1,979,029 kwacha were instead paid 2,264,118 kwacha, resulting in an overpayment of 285,090 kwacha. This was contrary to the directive of the board that the former employees be paid part of their package to avoid destitution. In this regard, the outstanding mortgage amount owed by these three employees increased from 3,819,636 kwacha to 4,104,726 kwacha. As a result, the payment periods were adjusted from a range of 14 and 25 years to between 15 and 51 years. In addition, there were no details available to show how the recovery period was determined. Further, it was observed that one employee who resigned and two who were dismissed were also paid the full packages without deducting the loans outstanding in amount totaling 58,818 kwacha and 618,674 kwacha respectively owed to the fund. See Table 6. Table 6 shows the numbers of the loans I've just explained. In terms of management response, Chair, on the same page 7, management has taken note of the auditor's observations. The committee may wish to note that all the affected members of staff separated from the fund by way of redundancy and had their outstanding loans deducted from the packages. However, the affected staff exited the fund with nothing after recovery of outstanding loans, inclusive of the outstanding legal mortgages. The affected members of staff appealed to the board that the fund was unilaterally terminating their registered legal mortgages before the agreed period. Chair, I move to page 8. Period till retirement date. The board therefore guided that former employees at the fund who separated by way of redundancy and the outstanding mortgage balances whose recovery resulted in the former employees forfeiting their packages should be paid back their mortgage balances and agree on a payment plan. See attached payment plans and board resolutions. Based on the above board resolution and subsequent mortgage debt settlement agreement attached on Appendix 2, the affected former members of staff were paid as indicated below. Under A, 3 former employees who appealed to the board for consideration on their indebtedness were paid in accordance with the condition of service, which states that the mortgage loan will run until retirement of the employee, and management considered the following measures. The mortgage payment were based on the mortgage balance at the time of separation. The recovery period was based on the expected working life of the employee as per duly registered legal mortgages which was signed by the affected member of staff. Next bullet is the fund entered into debt settlement agreement with the affected employee as per attached Appendix 2. Next bullet, the former employees have also been making payment towards their indebtedness. However, the fund faces some challenges in collection of those former employees who are not yet in employment. Appendix 3. Regarding the adjustment to the repayment period as highlighted by the auditors, the negotiated repayment periods were based on the remaining period of retirement as provided for in the condition of service. Chair, Part B of the answer still on page 8. One of the staffs who resigned from the fund made payment towards the debt amounting to 38,498 kwacha 87 ingwe, leaving a balance of 58,818 kwacha 98 ingwe. However, there has been some challenges locating the whereabouts of the former employee, and the legal department is handling this matter. Chair, I move to page 9. The 2 employees with outstanding loans amounting to 618,674 kwacha were dismissed on disciplinary ground, and they were not paid their full packages due to the fact that they were dismissed on ground of fraud. This was in accordance with clause 7.5 of the Fund's Human Resource Code and Grievances Procedure Handbook, see Appendix 4. One of the cited employee with outstanding loan amounting to 99,525 kwacha 44 ngwe is deceased, and the legal department is handling the matter with the estate of the late employee. The second employee has been making payment, and the commitment letter and statement is attached on Appendix 4. Chair and members of the committee, I submit.
Thank you so much, PS. Members are now free to make follow-ups on the submission made by the PS. Honorable Nakyoka, you are going first.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, PS. PS, I note that the question or the issue on budget and income of collections hasn't been responded to in your submission. So that's what I would like to get clarity on. Just want to make sure we are together. And that's a matter that you find on page 148 of the Auditor General's report. My question for clarification is, or maybe let me just give this little background. We note that when there is positive variance, some entities feel that, well, there isn't anything to explain. This is supposed to be commended, in fact, because we have done so well in comparison to the target. But on our part, it raises the question of the setting of the targets themselves. How do we end up with these huge over collections if our targets are actually realistic in the first place? That's my question. Thank you, Chair.
PS, you have read the question, that there is no explanation provided at all. And as you have read, most of the income sources here are very well known. You had the numbers, so you can respond.
Thank you, Chair. I'll ask management to explain, but one of the issues, Chair, I can recall from the minister, I think there is a time when the contribution were delayed by the Minister of Finance in terms of remitting. So it could be one of the contributing factors, because I think probably the institution budgeted in terms of what they were expecting to receive, but government paid some of the arrears in terms of the contribution. Chair, that's the time I think we had some cash problems in the Ministry of Finance, and they were kind of like rationing and paying in parts. But let me ask management just to provide extra information, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, Chair, this variance arose as a result of the Treasury clearing the outstanding contribution arrears. So that's what triggered that supplementary, rather excess income that was received.
Maybe, Chair, just to add, yeah, I think it's a question of probably we should have liaised more with the institution, I think, at the time of budgeting. Because I think if we had the information that we are going to clear the areas, maybe that information should be shared with them, so that maybe we give them the estimate probably which we are going to do in terms of paying the amount, so that the budgeting, I think, is appropriate, because the variance is huge. I think we should have maybe handled it prudently by exchanging information, so that at the time of budgeting they know that, okay, the expectation, I think the number will be more than what maybe probably they had in mind. I submit, Chair.
Honorable Kasando, you wanted to follow? Okay, so now maybe the question is, why didn't you make this information available to the auditors? Because if you had explained the way you have explained, I don't think this audit query would have been escalated to the committee.
I think, Chair, I think if you have seen, I think in terms of reporting, maybe it's an issue we need to discuss with the auditors, because wherever there is a variance, they still report. But maybe it's maybe what the Honorable Nakoka, I think, indicated. I think usually when there is a positive balance, we don't provide the information. We thought probably this is good, but we hear that any such a change, I think, full information is supposed to be provided. But maybe, Chair, I think it's an area we improve, I think, in future in terms of providing information. Whether there is a negative or positive, I think that information is supposed to be provided. Regarding not providing the information, I think, to the auditors, let me ask management, I think, to come in on that issue.
Thank you, Chair. I think that management appreciates the concerns, and indeed this explanation was provided, but obviously there may have been an oversight in indicating it in the report. I submit, Chair.
Honorable Kasando.
Microphone. Thank you, Chair. Well, the response, they are saying that probably government paid the arrears. That could fall under contributions on number 1. But we still have an overage on the investment, so it can't be the same reason why there was an overage. Maybe they can also explain why they recorded a variance of 85 million involving investments, while their target was 481,000 plus. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Cassandra. PS?
Thank you. Let me ask management, Chair, to come in on that.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, the budget was 481, and there was more investment income being reflected. This, Chair, arose as a result of, as you can imagine, investments are not predictable sometimes with certainty. So we may have placed more resources which triggered this extra investment income. As you know, our mandate is to ensure that whatever excess monies we have, we invest. So that's what resulted in this excess investment income. I submit, Chair.
Honorable Nakoka.
Thank you, Chair. That's on the positive variances. We still have got, under other inflows, a major or a big underperformance there, where your budget was 15,200,000 and the actual inflows is just above 3 million. What occurred there?
Yeah, PS, the honorable members are making reference to your table on page 3.
Yes, Chair, it's correct. Let me ask management, I think, because this is an operational issue. I think they'll be able to know in terms of what has transpired in terms of the inflow on the other income.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, the observation is valid. This negative variance on other inflows arose as a result of unpaid VAT refunds from the Zambia Revenue Authority. These are VAT refunds that had been verified by ZRA, but pending payment by the Zambia Revenue Authority. So we took it into account, knowing that this money is due to us in the budget period. But then, at the end of the period, we only were able to receive what is being reflected. The rest still remained unremitted by the Zambia Revenue Authority. I submit, Chair.
So our directive on this matter as a committee, PS, is that you make a written submission supported by documentary evidence, both on the contributions and the other inflows, which will be submitted through our secretariat for verification by the Auditor General, so that our report can be complete. All right. Honorable Mundibile, you have got
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question comes from page 149, and this is on the statement of changes in net assets available for benefits. PS, a statement in changes in net assets available for pension benefits gives the financial status of a retirement fund. That is to say, it gives an indication of the total available funds. So my question is on the delay in payments of pension liabilities. Is the fund in a position to avail the current financial status of the retirement fund? Yes, I submit.
Thank you, Chair. Let me ask management to provide the explanation for that, Chair.
I think I'll need the question to be rephrased, Chair.
Honorable Mundibile.
Thank you. Yeah, well, maybe I gave a very long background. So my question relates to the delay in the payment of pension liabilities. So the question is the fund in a position to avail the current financial status of the retirement fund?
Yes,
PS, you can.
Chair, indeed, we are able to provide the financial status. There may have been delays arising from those contribution arrears, but after the contribution arrears were disbursed, the fund was able to accelerate the disbursements during this period, with the result that at that time we were able to attain to reduce the waiting period drastically. I will ask my Director, Pension Administration, to shed more light, just to buttress my submission.
No, you have to come to the mic. Just.
That one. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Currently, we have 2,800 pensioners that are expecting to be paid their benefits, and the total amount is 2.48 million. If we break that down in terms of statutory payments and early retirement cases, out of 2,800, we have 1,559 cases under retirement, statutory retirements. Then we have early retirement cases, 1,241 in terms of numbers. In terms of the figure 2.48, for retirement cases, we have 1.68 billion. For early retirement, we have 799.49 million. So in terms of the where we stand, Chair, this is where we are. Thank you.
Honorables, any follow-up? Any question?
Yeah, just on the figures, what did you say is the total amount for both early retirement and statutory retirement? I had 2.48 million. Then you said the other side 1.8 billion. So maybe she can repeat the figures, Chair.
You can repeat the figures for the interest of the committee.
Thank you very much. Chair, the total is 2.48 billion. That is the total amount that we are owing for the retirees.
Okay.
The total. So we are splitting this into two because we have statutory retirement cases and we do have early retirement cases. So the makeup of a 2.48 billion is on statutory cases we have 1.682 billion. Then we have early retirement cases 799.49 million. So those are the figures. Thank you.
Okay, what is there? Honorable Mapani.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair, going by the prevailing situation, I want to find out exactly when we intend to finally settle all these things to the owners. I submit.
Thank you very much, Chair. In the budget that was presented, we have the financing gap that government has provided for these retirees, which is about 3.9 billion, almost 4 billion, which we intend to settle for the outstanding amounts that we have read. And for the first quarter, Chair, we received about 200 million. And on the 200 million, we've been able to settle part of what we have been able to read out. So we are hoping by the end of the year, this definitely will be cleared. But as the members will appreciate, this status is at 26th of February. So it is a status that will be changing as retirees retire. Thank you.
You still wanted to go, Honorable Mapani?
Yes, Chair. Just historically and the current prevailing situation, I want to find out whether the allocations that you were given to which were allocated through our budget were finally met, and if they were met, comparing to what happened last year and what you're anticipating to have this year, do you see yourself that we are not going to go with this same amount next year?
First and foremost, to state that indeed government has been able to meet in the past 2 years in full what has been allocated to the fund. In fact, when you look at the statements, like for the other year, we had to receive a supplementary on top of what was provided. Historically, you'll see that because we were having outstanding arrears from the previous period, so government has been able to provide a supplementary funding to ensure that we clear. So we are hoping that where we are going, we should be able to be current, looking at where we are coming from. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So again, PS, we shall need a written submission of those details. That will form part of the complete response to part A of the questions and part B of the questions that have been posed. But again, like we are saying, this is the information that should have been made available at the time of audit. We could have avoided having this query being escalated up to this level. But anyway, we need that written submission, which through the Secretariat, Auditor General can verify. All right, we make progress. Honorable Mpundu.
Chair, I would like to ask the witness in relation to the statement of net assets that are available for benefits. For the sake of being at the same, level, the net assets available for benefits represents the assets versus liabilities that are available to pay, accumulated benefits. The auditors have reviewed to the committee that after the review of the statement of changes in net assets available for benefits, other payables and accrued income expenses increased by 8.8 million in the period under review, that is from 2021 into 2022.
Witness, in your memorandum, you have stated that the increase in other payables and accrued expenses in 2022 is attributed to the Zambia Industrial Commercial Bank coupon interest under collateral, the microfin loan that were refundable, the undisbursed house loans and other suppliers. This committee is interested to note from you, PS, what progress has your people made towards integrating your system with the government payroll and other financial institutions for seamless data exchange to avoid the over-deduction of microfin? This question comes in line with what you submitted in your memorandum, that there were microfins that were over-deducted. So we'd want to see what progress you've made in harmonizing your systems. Number two, we'd like to also find out what the current status is in relation to the undisbursed house loans, as well as the position of suppliers as at 31st December 2023. Chair, I submit. PS, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Let me ask management to provide an explanation for that, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of harmonization of the systems to bring about a seamless environment in terms of exchange of information, management wishes to report that the fund has embarked on a robust program of integrating systems. In fact, even as we speak, Public Service Management Division and all other government ministries are working with the fund to integrate the systems. We've already started, and we expect that this system integration should be concluded according to our set target by the first half of this year. I'll ask my colleague, Director Pension Administration, to shed more light as well to buttress my submission. I submit, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. Indeed, we've made a lot of progress in terms of integrating our systems. This includes actually even the defense forces as well. We are not just targeting PEMIC. And in what we are trying to do, we are trying to link our system with the systems of the ministries that we are dealing with, so that where we are going, our pension in terms of administration, we expect that we'll be having or dealing with documents electronically, where our ministries will be able to submit these documents electronically, and we should be able to process our benefits as such. In fact, in our strategic plan, this is one thing that we've made very clear, that we want to reduce the pension benefits processing time from 21 days to 2 days, because we see that part of the delay that is causing in terms of processing has to do with the manual systems that we have. So, Chair, we've made a lot of progress. In terms of PEMIC, actually, we are able to access the PEMIC payroll as we speak now. The only things now that we are trying to upgrade is to ensure that issues of loans are also linked, so that immediately we pay a pension, automatically the ministry also is updated that this has been done. So we are on track, and we are hoping by the 6th month, especially on digitizing the information, we should be able to reach our target. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable members, any follow-up? Yes, Honorable Mpondo,
Yeah.
you can go.
I think we've noted there's another question on the status quo in relation to suppliers as well as the undisbursed house loans.
PS?
Chair, I don't know, in the last two bullets there we have provided the status on 31st December 2023. I don't know, maybe it's the information to now, maybe
On page?
on page 6. There is the last bullet there, and based house loan. And the last sentence there is as at 31st December 2023, 1.3 million had been settled. So this is the report, what was reported is for 2022, but an update has been given in terms of what has been paid by 31st December 2023.
Okay.
Just some clarification, Chair.
All right. Any appendices to verify this position? Just like you have done to the other matters?
Let me ask Management Chair to approve.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, that information can be provided.
Okay, so just like area guided, we would like to have that status backed by evidence that should be forwarded through the Secretariat. Any Honorable Mpondo?
Chair, I just would like to get some clarities in relation to the Zambia Industrial Commercial Bank coupon interest. You should understand that we are lay people, so we'd like to just understand what this, relates to the payable. Maybe in simple terms, what this relates to.
Thank you, Chair. So what this relates to is that there are certain institutions where we make investments in. For example, there are financial institutions like ZICB or these other smaller financial institutions. So what we do is to make sure that the funds we are placing are secure. And what I mean by secure is in the event of anything happening to that institution, the fund should be comfortable that they'll be able to recover the funds that they have placed with this institution. So for example, for ZICB in this case, we have placements, investment placements with them, which are called short-term deposits, which are within a period of less than a year. And to make sure that those funds that we've placed with them are secure, we request them to provide us government securities as collateral, so that in the event of anything, we are able to fall back on these government securities as surety. So what happened in this case is that with one of the government securities that they had given us as collateral, we received coupon. And that coupon is not part of the security bit of it. Only the principal bit of it is what is considered as collateral. So when we received this coupon was ideally supposed to be sent back to them, because it's not part of what was agreed as collateral in this case. So when we received it, I think, end of the year, and by the following year in 2023, we had sent it back to them because it wasn't forming part of the collateral as agreed. Yes.
It was sent to them in error?
It was sent to, because what usually happens is when these funds are placed as collateral, they move from their CSD account and they move into the PSPF CSD account. So for as long as these monies are sitting in the PSPF CSD account, all the coupons and everything that will be coming to PSPF, and then they'll be transferred. And only the principal bit of it will still remain with PSPF as collateral. Yes, Chair.
Okay. Honorable Mapani.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I have 3 questions under staff matters on indebtedness of former PSPF employees, and this can be extracted from page 150 of the Auditor General's report. This is on the bad debt leading to loss of funds. Chair, on page 7 of the memorandum, the controlling officer, you have stated that the board guided that former employees of the fund who separated by way of redundance and had outstanding mortgage balances, whose recovery resulted in the former employees forfeiting their packages, and the board directed that they should be paid back their mortgage balances and agree on the payment plan. Chair, just want to find out if they are able to avail the reports on the committee on that one. I think, Chair, I'll go question by question so that we systematically follow the answers.
So you give a number of questions, just keep it up, and then you can come and respond at the end. You can go ahead.
Are they able to avail reports to the committee? That's the first question. The second question, Chair, is indicating the total amount that has been collected from the former employees from 1st January 2023 to date and the outstanding balances. Let them indicate the total amount that has been collected from the former employees from 1st January 2023 to date and the outstanding balances. That's the second question, Chair. Chair, the way forward in relation to the collection of funds from those former employees who have not managed to secure subsequent employment and who are facing challenges locating their whereabouts. So we want to find out how they are proceeding with those. Okay. I think, Chair, let them answer these 2 first before we proceed to the other 2, so that we are able to follow each other properly. I submit.
PS, you can react to those 2
Thank
questions.
you, Chair. Let me ask management, I think, to provide the explanation.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, management is in a position to avail these reports to the committees. Management also wishes to confirm that it will be able to provide the schedule of recoveries between the 1st of January 2023 to date.
Honorable Mapani. Switch off the...
Thank you, Chair. Whilst the Chair, maybe I just wanted to find out whether at the time of audit it was not necessary for them to provide these same statements to the auditors, or why didn't they do that at the time of audit?
PS, I'm sure I've gotten the question from the honorable member.
Yes, Chair. Let me ask management, Chair, to provide the explanation.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the statements were provided to the auditors. I think what was an issue is maybe the pace at which these collections were done, were being done. And you know, Chair, in our response that we are saying that, of course, there is a bit of a challenge for some of them because of the fact that how these collections have been coming. And like as guided, we will try and put them together so that they are aligned, not sitting just in a statement, but maybe sitting separately to say, okay, for this individual, this is how much is being collected. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Nakoka.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to make a follow-up question on this issue. PS, it appears there is a little bit of a conundrum here. The employees that are being dismissed in particular or separating under any circumstance from the entity is the fact that they are both employees as well as clients. I don't know whether we are together on that one. Properly taken care of in your terms and conditions. Maybe to just give a little bit of an understanding on that. We see you have supplied the disciplinary codes. You know, there's an employee you dismissed for fraud. That's as an employee. Now, when it comes to that individual as your client, it appears the only way to resolve this matter was for the board to actually make a decision, which means there isn't a policy that gives guidance in terms of an employee who also relies on you to service their obligations as a client when you fire them under a separate arrangement. So is this matter included in your terms and conditions of employment so that there is clarity from your own policies as opposed to the matter having to be looked at by the board and then saying, well, to avoid destitution, because sure, you can't run an institution like that on the basis of avoiding destitution. There has to be a policy that gives guidance on how to handle these situations. Do we have a policy to that effect? Thank you, Chair.
Pierce?
Yeah, Chair, I'll ask him, management, but maybe before I do that, yes, in terms of maybe, Chair, I think it's correct that the policy must be in place so that it gives some guidance in terms of how things happen. But Chair, what I know also is that some policies are developed or improved on the way, because some of these cases happened in the course of running an institution. Then you find actually that maybe in one area there is a deficiency there. And it gives you some thoughts in terms of, moving forward, this is a matter which has happened to us maybe in the future. Let's put a policy in place so that we insulate ourselves, I think, from what has happened. Then what will happen usually is management make a proposal and that policy is taken to the board and the board approved it. But in this particular case, it looks like there was no policy. But let me ask management, what are the plans in terms of moving forward so that in future, if you have a similar situation, then you don't have to rush to the board again to make a decision. There must be a policy which management should be able now to, I think, to manage, to administer, so that it becomes part and parcel of their daily routine, I think, in terms of administration. Chair, let me ask the management just to confirm.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, there is policy, but we have embarked on a review of all the policies to align them with to our current strategic plan, and HR policy is one of those policies that management has prepared and which will be submitted to the board for approval. But as things stand, the policy is there, except that we are enhancing these policies now, and the documents have been prepared. Thank you, Chair.
Maybe the question is, we have looked at the resolutions of the board, and the resolutions were just to the effect that former employees of the fund separated by way of redundancy and have outstanding mortgage balances whose recovery would result in the former employee forfeiting their packages shall be paid part of the redundancy package to avoid destitution, and the following shall apply. A former employee whose mortgage has been discharged and title released shall not be eligible to be paid. B, management shall engage individual former employees to agree on the payment plan for liquidating the remaining outstanding debt to the fund. No reference to any policy here. And I think the question from the honorable member was to find out what is provided, because you have given us also the code of conduct, which basically deals with disciplinary matters. Maybe you have got a board chairperson here. Even when if you look to part B, it was pressing the responsibility on management. So what was management to use to make this determination? Yes.
Thank you. As I explained, I think management, is this area covered by the policy, or is something which is missing from the policy? That's why the board you had to take the matter to the board, because if it's clear in the policy, Chair, I hear you and the honorable member, it should not go to the board. So if it's the board, maybe or the policy is outdated, needs now revamped, because now we've got a case. That's why the revision now comes in. Then the matter will be taken to the board, so that this issue now becomes part of the policy, not from time to time, as the case happens, then you go back to the board. I think that's what the committee wants to know. So I think let's explain whether this is covered in the current policy, or we are reviewing it so that now the board can approve, so that now we've got the policy which we can use as management. Chair, maybe just to help the management to respond. Then the board also chairperson will come in, I think, later on, Chair.
You can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. It's important to acknowledge that the current policies do not address the matter that was taken to the board. So the board had to make a determination in direct response to the appeals that were made by the affected employees. The committee may wish to note that from next Tuesday, the board is having special sessions to revamp our policies and to address areas which are not adequately covered, or where the policies are not in line with our new strategic plan and where we think the institution should be. So yes, the policy was not there to guide management, and then the board were made to take a decision basically on a case basis rather than putting in place an actual policy. So this is something that's being addressed actually next week as I speak. Thank you.
Honorable Msomari.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mine is maybe outside the box. I'd like to maybe bring something which is outside the box as far as destitution for our pensioners is concerned. After getting their pension benefits, most of our pensioners, or should I say some, because I don't have the correct data, they end up being destitute because they spend their so-called benefits lavishly for lack of maybe better for investment, but they have worked for the government and offered their labor diligently, but how they end up being destitute after getting the so-called lump sum is concern to society. I would like to find out if the fund gives some kind of special education or advice to would-be pensioners prior to getting their pensions, because we live with these people. You agree with me that we live amongst these people, but when they get their money, they don't reflect and have the wisdom that they possessed at the time when they were working. Some even abandon their families to look for other greener pastures and then come back to dry pasture again. Maybe it's something that is outside the box, but it is a concern which we are living with. Maybe controlling officer, you can have a word on that. I thank you.
It's within the box. I think the honourable member is asking about deliberate policies in terms of financial literacy that is extended to pensioners. You can go ahead, Pierce.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very important question. I think the Honourable Musumari has raised. Chair, I think we have seen. I think we live in communities with these people. Sometimes we see what happens when someone was not prepared to receive a huge amount of money at a particular time. I think they make certain decisions which are detrimental to their future. Chair, from the government point of view, Cabinet Office, I think, used to run some special courses targeting those who are about to retire. Maybe the issue is those courses maybe came late. What maybe I would suggest moving forward is that at the time when you are employed, we are taken, I think, on these courses in terms of making savings, because sometimes we focus on just consuming. And also, as we prepare, because Chair, as you are employed, the next point you need to think of is that you are going to retire. Retirement date is going to come. So then how do we prepare ourselves? How can the employee can come in terms of the educating, I think, the employer? Maybe the public service pension fund also need also to maybe to come in, work with government to say that how do we educate, I think, our pensioners so that by the time when they receive this money, they know how to use it. Chair, part of the reform also, I think, which government has been putting on the table is this issue of the lump sum payment. Because if someone receives the money now, they spend it, the monthly pension is not enough to sustain them. So there is some proposition which we are discussing as with government at a technical level to see why can't we maybe pay a considerable amount of money, but also think in terms of the monthly, which can sustain a particular pensioner, so that the issue of the institution in Chair can be addressed. Because once you receive the lump sum, you get excited, then by the time the money finishes, that's when you come. Some, they even abandon their families. Only when the money comes, that's when they want to be taken care of. I think it's not an appropriate situation. So I think financial literacy is very important. The Minister of Finance, I think, has been undertaking this program of financial literacy, but the focus has been more in the financial sector. But I think maybe following the intervention by Honorable Musumari, I think we need to focus also on the pension, because it's a constituency which is very, very important, because it's talking about someone's future. So moving forward, Chair, I think the education aspect of it is something we need to take on board. The reform, Chair, once these are done, probably they come before the House, is something that the Parliament can look at to see exactly how do we ensure that the person who has labored for this country gets a pension, but in terms of moving forward also, there is sustainability, and the life of that particular person, I think, is also well taken care of. By doing this reform, I think that can help, I think, to answer that question. But it's a fundamental issue in terms of the future of the pensioners. I submit, Chair.
Okay, let me allow Honourable Mpani to complete his set of questions.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, CF2, which I'll quickly present to the witness. Chair, the second last question is, how were the payment period of 15 to 51 years arrived at this rate of the recovery? At this rate of recovery, is it feasible that these loans will be fully recovered? And the final one, Chair, is kindly explain the overpayment of 285,000 in excess of the redundant package. Chair, I support.
Chair, I've picked the questions. That's following up on the submission from the board chair that there's no policy that guides the fund on how to deal with these scenarios. So the interest is how were these periods of between 15 and 51 years arrived at? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Let me ask management to respond.
Thank you, Chair. I'll ask Manager Legal Services to come and shed light.
Thank you, Chair. So these periods, they were arrived at as a result of the legal mortgages that were signed between the employees and Public Service Pensions Fund. So what usually happens is that in the mortgage deed itself, the period is between the retirement period of an employee and the time that that person obtains that mortgage. So the period was determined in that manner. So it's the period from the time that one is obtaining until the retirement age. I submit, Chair.
There was a further question to that. The question was, at that rate of recovery, is it feasible that these loans will be fully recovered? That was the final question from the Honorable.
Thank you, Chair. So, well, yes, it is feasible that they will be fully recovered. I think there was just, I think it's an oversight. What we did is that we've already entered into further payments agreements, which has significantly reduced the period for that is being referred to from that 50 years to between 14 and 25 years. So it's feasible that this amount will be paid within that period.
Even when you can't locate some of these people?
So for some of these, actually, what we've done is that we've tried to look for these people, but where we have not been able to find them, we're trying to just obtain a court judgment. Once we obtain a court judgment, wherever we find these people, we'll be able to execute the judgment of the court.
Honorable members, yes, Honorable Mapani, then Honorable Anakoka, in that order.
Chair, there are two questions that I would want to find out from the legal counselor. The first one is he aware that, Chair, that these people are out of employment? That's the first thing. And if they're out of employment, I wanted to find out from him whether these loans or mortgages were insured. If not, then why were they not insured?
Thank you, Chair. So through our chair, so for all these, for the mortgages, these are registered and secured mortgages. We've registered them with Minister of Lands, Lusaka City Council. So we have the title deeds as mortgages. So in an event that there's any need for foreclosure proceedings, then we can commence those foreclosure proceedings.
Honorable Anakoka.
Thank you, Chair. Just to get some clarity that will probably attract a follow-up question. Are we saying here that there was a restructuring of these mortgages with these former employees? Yes or no? I will have a follow-up question, Chair, after that clarification.
PS.
Due to a lack of a better term, I think we can call it a restructuring.
You can go on.
Thank you, Chair. My follow-up question then is, I think to the board chair, maybe this is some form of input we will be making for your policy review, because the challenge that you have here is that you are making decisions on these mortgages not based on the mortgage, independent of the mortgage holder as a client, independent of this individual being an employee. Instead, now you are entering into stories of negotiations where the employee is saying, I can only pay 3,000. I've seen one letter here. So you are now trying to fit the 3,000 into how much this individual is owing. Now, this is a mortgage, like you're saying, it's a legal mortgage, which means the terms and conditions are clear, including what would lead to foreclosure. So the temptation to look at the client as an employee must be resisted when you are reviewing these policies, because the client was signing, you just happen to be the source of their income, but they signed on this mortgage with an understanding of the obligations due from them. In an event of losing employment, it kicks in the normal way that it would kick to any other person who would get the mortgage. But once you start tying yourselves to whether this person has been re-employed, what is it that they are doing, you will have a lot of problems in this area. So maybe it's not really a question, it's a submission to say that as you revisit your policies, please be mindful of this dangerous area. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, that was more or less like a comment. We shall have a follow-up question from Honorable Mazoka, then Honorable Vumango Msumali, in that order.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Now, in case of the death of the one, your former employee who has, a mortgage with you, he dies. He leaves his wife and the children in the house, if it was a house mortgage. And you've just mentioned that, and this wife doesn't work, You've just mentioned that, you have, title deeds with you of those that, took mortgages. Would you, on humanitarian grounds, let the family stay in the house, or you would follow, what you just mentioned, that you would take the matter to court? I just wanted to, since you have already committed yourselves here, with these mortgages, that on what? There is a term I've just forgotten. Yeah, foreclosure, but where you said because they are not working, I've forgotten but anyway, that's my substantive question. Would you foreclose on that house, kick out the widow and her children, or you to say, okay, on humanitarian grounds, we wipe out this, loan? Thank you.
That's a goodness of having wisdom from our mothers. So just keep a tab on that very, very important, pertinent question. I'll allow Honorable Vumango to also pose a question, then you can respond at the same time.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Maybe I'm a little bit offside, but the Land Legal Counsel here has submitted that these mortgages, they are registered and secured mortgages, and the repayment periods are calculated on the residue of the employee's tenure of the contract. I don't know how the problems are rising. Are you having problems in as far as recovery of these mortgages are concerned? Because if you are able to secure the mortgage with the Ministry of Lands, I don't see why there should be a problem. Maybe you can make me understand further. Is there any problem in as far as the recovery? Because the law protects you, whether someone has gone for another pasture, or in the case he's deceased, because we are able to recover the money from their benefits. Or if not, you fall on the same secured mortgages. Are you having any problem as far as recovery is concerned?
So you respond to both questions at the same time.
Chair, let me ask management to come in that. Maybe the board chair also, I think, would like also to say something.
Thank you very much. I think the statements raised by the honorable members are clear. Perhaps if I can start with Honorable Nkoka, then I'll come to... Well, I'm sorry, my apologies. My apologies. The past board decisions regarding the persons who were either made redundant or dismissed on disciplinary grounds were not taken using sound business principles for an institution that is there to preserve the capital, because these are pension funds. In other words, we cannot afford to play around with that money. No matter what our emotional sentiments are, these are pension funds. They have to be managed scrupulously and accounted for. Unfortunately, the actual practices did not conform to that standard, and the board that I chair is seriously addressing this issue, that we have to protect and preserve the capital. The decisions of saying if we recover the money, people will be destitute, has nothing to do with the board. It's an individual's choice that should be addressed with financial literacy, helping people understand how to plan, which is a completely separate issue, as you have ably articulated, honorable member. So, amongst the number of priorities that we've taken as a board is to protect and put in place policies that will always safeguard the fund and not allow discretion to be applied anyhow, like in this case. Because it's quite embarrassing that you have some loanees who, since 2014, they've paid less than 10,000 kwacha. I think you have seen that, honorable members. Since 2014, paid less than 10,000 kwacha, and they are owing hundreds of thousands of kwacha. This clearly shows particular deficiencies in how the board was being managed, and we intend to address this with the seriousness that it deserves. Honorable Mazoka, unfortunately, we cannot use our hearts in managing the issue. Yes, we don't want to have widows being thrown out of the house, but the consequence of a member not having addressed what future would look like if they deceased or lost employment is a matter that all of us as Zambians need to worry about. But as far as the fund is concerned, it has to be impersonal. It's the money that we have to protect, because these are contributions from people who want to be paid when they retire. So if we start forgiving debt or saying we can't recover, we are actually further deteriorating the value, or we are depreciating the capital of the fund. So the current board chair, I would like to assure this august meeting that we are taking a lot of these issues very, very seriously, and amongst the initial steps that we are doing, we are also putting in amendments to the Act, and we would really, really appreciate the support of the members of parliament in getting these amendments through as soon as we're able to engage and get the government to present a bill to amend the act, because we need to reshape public pensions fund management and try and address some of the glaring problems. I'll give an example, Honorable Chair. In terms of our investments, we, under the current act, we are limited. We cannot place investments, we cannot more than 20% of investable resources in any one instrument. So every year we don't meet the audit standard. We end up placing more than what we're allowed to by the act. But if we didn't do that, we'd be eroding our capital. So we have a number of challenges, and what has been expressed here is well noted. There's the literacy education that we must embark on, and we've been discussing it. But most importantly, we need to look at strengthening how the fund is managed, both in terms of the law and in terms of the policies. Thank you very much.
Chair, even part of the thinking, I think, in terms of the aspect I think Honorable Mazoka raised. How can you insulate? You are the breadwinner, you have left a property, so now you die. The widow doesn't have the resources to repay the loan. That's why the aspect of insurance, Chair, also comes in. Imagine if the loan was insured, then at the time of death, the insurance company just meet that, then the family is secure. So to me, maybe the PSPF, as they are looking at maybe their policies, rather than going through a protracted recovery, gaining the legal and whatever, maybe try to protect that so that the insurance comes in, so that the one who wants the loan, can say that this is mandatory, you have to insure, so that all the effort try to recover, then it's no longer there. So to me, I think it would be a good initiative, so that also it protects the institution, but also the one who wants the loan, because your family is secure, and just in case you are not there, the family is taken care of. I think now to answer to Honorable Mazoka, rather than using that, no, because there is a family, and unfortunately the institution, Chair, there is nothing like that. We have to safeguard the fund, and we need to follow the law. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just to remind the board chairperson that, sir, you are a board chairperson for an institution which is a going concern. And when you are sitting here, we are looking at the board, and not who was there then and who is there now. So just to ensure that you take over the responsibilities. Honorable Mapani, there's one outstanding question which was posed by the Honorable MP. I can ask him to repeat the question.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the question is, let them explain, kindly explain the overpayment of 285,000 in excess of the redundancy package.
Have you picked the question? I think this is highlighted on page 7 of your submission.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, the question has been picked. This was an oversight, and it's being addressed by the members that were affected to enter into fresh repayment arrangements so that the monies are recovered. That has been done, and our management wishes to assure your committee chair that it's prepared to even avail evidence to that effect. I submit.
And let that be done again through the Secretariat for the purpose of verification by the Auditor General. So maybe as we are coming to the conclusion of this engagement, Honorable, you had something you wanted to raise?
Yes,
Please go ahead.
Okay, personally, I would like to commend the Public Service Pension Fund. because we live in the same community. You had a backlog of pensioners which you have managed to pay off. That is in public domain. Maybe the question that I would like to ask the fund, it's about the sustainability of the measures that you have taken, or if anything, are there any measures that you have taken as a fund so that you don't go back to a situation whereby people will be queuing at where is it now? We were in Woodlands that time, where some house was occupied by by some pensioners. Definitely no one would love to go back to such kind of a situation. Have you put in deliberate measures so that the trajectory that you are on is sustainable? I thank you, Chair.
Yes, PS.
Thank you, Chair. I think I ask management also will come in. I think sustainability is the answer. I think that's why first, maybe from the policy, overall policy of government, is try to make this pension fund sustainable. And that's why those reform, Chair, I mentioned that when the bill comes before the House, is try to achieve that. At the moment, I think the whole load is placed on government to pay the pensioner. But what we want is that as the pensioners are contributing, the funds can be invested, grown, so that this gap which we are facing at the moment, I think, can be reduced, so that in terms of moving forward, I think it becomes sustainable. But from the management point of view, maybe let me ask them also to comment in terms of internally what they are doing about the aspect of sustainability.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, the sustainability of the fund is a priority issue by the board and its management. If you look at the value of the net assets available for distribution to the members, we've been, against all odds, growing the net asset of the institution. If you looked at the financials for 3-4 years ago, the net asset of the fund was less than $1 billion, and today, as at 2022, you've seen that it's in excess of 3 billion, going towards 4 billion. And as was mentioned by our board chair, the restrictions also play a major part in stifling investment initiatives by the institution, because we also mindful that whereas we might want to invest more, we are also restricted by the law. So these reforms that are being mentioned will indeed inform how.
Thank you. Okay, Chair, maybe you can also just quickly introduce yourself, though we are about to conclude.
Constituency in Northwestern Province. I am the substantive chairperson for the Committee on Passato Bodies, but at the moment I'm just following proceedings virtually. Thank you very much.
Okay, Chair, thank you so much. You can conclude your submission, CEO.
Thank you, Chair. So I was saying that indeed the reform process that is being discussed will play a significant role in ensuring that the fund becomes sustainable and that we preserve value as has been demonstrated with the growth that has been posted over the past few years. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mapani.
Chair. Just an observation, Chair, on this issue of overpayment of 285,000. Chair, I still find it hard to understand that a directive was given by the board to pay and the specific amount was mentioned. Just to use the word oversight, Chair, to pay extra or more by 285,000, Chair, it becomes a bit unreasonable. So I want to find out from the legal counselor who actually tried who attempted to answer this question, whether indeed the word oversight, Chair, would be used in such circumstances where really an intention to deprive the company is vividly seen, Chair. Legal counselors always say a prima facie situation. You have been elected, this is the act you need to perform, and deliberately you go and perform the control of what you have been advised by the board, Chair. Should we really, Chair, leave issues on the concept of oversight, Chair, and allow things to go like that, Chair? Submit.
PS, the committee understands with interest that initially the management made the correct decision by getting to pay, getting to deduct monies from these employees. Then they appealed to the board, and then the board gave directives on whether humanitarian grounds or whatever it was, but it was a board, there was a board resolution. So the question was, why did management deliberately ignore the directives from the board and then overpaid those two employees? Because an oversight is what the committee is failing to just accept. Because if it was, I don't think the Auditor General would have escalated this query up to this stage.
Thank you, Chair. Let me ask management, this is an operational issue, Chair. As we have labored, the board gives the directive and those need to be followed. That's why even the policies, I think, are in place. It's not to do something contrary to what is not in the policy. Then that becomes, I think, an issue. So let me ask management, I think, to provide the response, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. As earlier indicated, it's unfortunate that such a mistake was made, but unfortunately it was made. I think despite that fact, what we are saying also is that we are going to recover this money. These are registered mortgages, and despite having made that mistake, we'll recover this money through the foreclosure proceedings in an event that there's a default on these groups of employees that were picked by the Auditor General.
PS, we are an accountability committee, and where there are such breaches, we expect that someone should have been held accountable. And so we shall report it as such in our report until such a time we are able to see what is being communicated now, that recoveries will be made, and proof to that effect is shown. I think that's how we are going to take that matter up, Secretariat. You've got burning matter, Honorable Mango, on the same? Okay, please go ahead so we can conclude.
Not exactly, Chair, on the same. Maybe on the 20% investment policy, which was initially lamented by the board chair, and then it has been resonated by the CEO. It's a concern, because it's like you are telling us that this act now, the Pension Act, it has outlived its usefulness. And, hence, it needs some urgent amendments to suit the current situation. My question goes to the controlling officer. This is a benefit that has been acknowledged, that it is worth looking at for the benefit of the fund going forward. When you as a controlling officer, they are actually telling you that you should bring this this amendment. When do you think you can bring it before Parliament so that the necessity can be done, because these patient matters are something that us, even members of Parliament, would like to do efficiently and effectively, because they affect our people. Each and every one of us seated here, we've got the pensioners in our respective constituencies, and if there are concerns like that, they must be done promptly. When do you think this is the legislative session, which is coming to an end? We haven't seen that. When are you going to bring those amendments which have been pointed out by your own board and the CEO to Parliament? Thank you.
As you respond to that, finally we've seen that you have got an acting CEO, acting Director of Finance. Would like to know when the last time you had a substantive CEO. You have got the board chairperson there, and what is being done on these matters. Please, you can go ahead, PS.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Chair, the issue of amending the Pensions Act, I think is an issue which has been on government table. At the moment, I think there are technical discussion, because, Chair, it's involved a number of institutions when you are coming up to the pension fund. I think we were just discussing in the morning with the acting chief executive officer that they were having actually some technical meetings, including the Ministry of Finance, Cabinet Office, and the other stakeholders, to look at the aspect you're talking about, the Act. So even those provisions, Chair, I think will be considered. Now there is a process, including Ministry of Justice. So arising from those technical meetings, then they will come up with a draft bill. Then that draft bill now has to be taken to Cabinet once approved. In principle, then from there they follow up now in terms of analyzing the bill. From there, once the Cabinet, I think, approved it, that's when it comes to Parliament. In terms of timetable, Chair, it's not very clear, because arising from that workshop, they will need to come up with the roadmap in terms of how this bill is going to be done. Chair, this time now, consultation with the stakeholders before even the bill comes to Parliament is very important. So we need to have consensus, or rather input from the stakeholders, so that once it comes to Parliament, then you ask a question, did you consult the stakeholders? Then you'll be able to answer that question positively. So, Chair, but it's a matter which is under consideration, but in terms of timeline, Chair, we'll ask the PSPF who lead that process to come up with the roadmap, so that we know exactly when that bill will be finalized and brought to the House for consideration. On the question of the governance, this acting, let me ask the chairman of the board just to give an explanation, Chair.
Thank you very much. The substantive CEO opted not to renew their contract when it came to end on 31st July 2023. So they opted not to renew, and it also happened at a time when shortly after the board had just been reconstituted. So we initially placed the person that he recommended to act in his because he went on leave prior to the end of the contract. So the person who was acting when he was on leave pending expiry of the contract, we then changed it to acting on for administrative convenience until end of October last year. Then the board managed to address this matter and then placed the acting CEO as formally acting, and the board has put in place a committee, a specifically selected committee that is monitoring performance and will present recommendations to the full board as to whether we can fill the position in-house or we go out. So we will await the report of the committee that is monitoring the performance of the acting CEO.
Thank you for those for the responses. We can only urge you. We know the interest of our pensioners is, as you heard from Honorable Musumali, is of our interest as well. And so ensure that you expeditiously deal with those governance issues so that decision making is not a challenge. And also to remind you that when the auditors are available, we know the audit process before the exit meetings. You try and make sure that you make the required information to address the queries at that point. And so, like we guided on the missing information, you should make submissions through the Secretariat for the verification by the Auditor General. I think we have come to the end of this engagement. PS, we have now stripped you, we are now stripping you, sir, of the immunity and the privileges we are enjoying together with your team as you are engaging this committee. You are now on your own. Whatever you say regarding the issues we were discussing, tabling here, it will be at your own risk. So we have come to the end of the meeting. I hope now you are going for good.
Chair, yes, at least I will have a relief today. This is my last appearance, but not the least, because Minister of Finance is wide and we may be needed somewhere else. Chair, just to appreciate, I think, the interaction and also the wisdom that has come from your committee and yourself. The issue of governance, Chair, I think is very important. From my other appearances, I think this issue is prominent. So it's a matter which we are going to take very seriously so that we sort out these issues. And also, we engage, Chair, with management in these institutions so that we make improvement. The issue of providing information, interacting with the Auditor General's office, I think there have been some laxity because some of the issues as we have raised could have been resolved, I think, between the institution and the Auditor General's office so that we don't even need to come here if this information was provided. So it's an area where we need to make improvement so that we can do better. Apart from that, Chair, just to appreciate your guidance and this interaction. It's also a learning process. We learn a lot, I think, from yourself so that also we can make improvement, I think, as individuals, as an institution, so that we can do better. I thank you, and I thank you, members of the committee, for this opportunity to interact. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, PS, and have a pleasant day.
So another part of the Jewish history of this town is in fact the Pioneer Tower behind me. That was funded by the Sussman brothers. They were amongst the first Jewish people to come to this country back in the 1890s. And once Livingston Town was built in 1905, they were amongst the first inhabitants. And 50 years later, as part of the celebration of their lives in this country, they funded the building of the clock tower. And of course it has a wonderful view over the falls, which we can see in front of us here, all the way down there. So it's part of the celebration, and 100 years later the Sussman brothers came back, and the Lutunga came from Barot Sudan to come and meet them. That is the prominence that this particular family had in this country, and of course in South Africa, because they left here, Livingston, to go to South Africa, where they set up in South Africa the company called Woolworths. So to this day the Jewish people have a strong influence not only in this country but in the sub-region. This is Nicky Iljon's shop. The Iljon family, of which there were various members of it, were one of the first inhabitants of the new town of Livingston, and this shop became one for selling bicycles and model aeroplanes. Now Nicky Iljon himself was the one who sadly closed down the synagogue when the last child had gone through there back in 1972. They then left here to go abroad after that. Behind me you can see there's a shop with pharmacy written on it. This used to be Sossi's Garage. This was a man called Harry Sossen who married into the Sussman family, and he had the leadership of the Chevrolets back in the Northern Rhodesian days. And also, I'm pointing out over here, this tree is exactly where King George VI of Great Britain stood in 1947 in his visit to this country. Behind me is the Capitol Theatre, which today is the oldest cinema and theatre left in Zambia, and it was owned originally by the Grill family, and a young man married into their family, and his name was Harry Sossen, who we've talked about earlier. And this is where famous people in the world like Alfred Hitchcock and Danny Kaye came through to see films here. It was built in 1931, and beyond it is the yellow building, Stanley House, which is where they sold the finery to the local girls. That was dresses and all the rest of it as well. And then further down the road is a very famous intersection. This was the main intersection in town, and everybody in town knew it as Fix, Flax and Orfox Corner, after the three traders who were there. There was Sam Fix, who ran a wonderful dressmaking company. Old man Flax ran the haberdashery, like a hardware store, and beyond it was the Orfox family, and they traded in everything else. And the humor at the time was that these three business folk made all their money during the day and ran it across the bank, which is on the fourth corner. And if you look down to the end, there's actually a lovely white building over there, which used to be Barclays before it moved across the road. The three shops behind me were owned by a gentleman called Elias Kapelowitz. Elias came from Latvia just before the First World War and traded with the local people further upstream. He used to paddle with his workers 40 miles upstream to exchange goods like beeswax and honey and things like that. And he then left here just after the First World War to go back to get a wife from Latvia, and they came through. Her name was Henny, and they ran the first completely kosher household in town. And they were very influential in here. They had an open house policy, and many Jewish people came through here. But their importance was recognized later on in life when they had both died, as their family received a letter of condolence from Buckingham Palace because of all the wonderful work they'd been doing for the communities, not just the Jewish communities, out here in the then Northern Rhodesia. And I think that's a great rubber stamping of the kinds of people we had coming over here in the early years. When the town of Livingston was built in 1905, provision was actually made for a synagogue to be built. And originally the site was where the St. Andrew's Anglican Church is today. But eventually in 1928 this site was taken over and the first synagogue in this country was built. The stone was unveiled by Eli Sussman, who later on left to go down to South Africa. But this is where they had a hall where they could all get together on the Sabbath and speak Hebrew and pass on all their traditions. The middle building was where the rabbi lived, and of course this here was the synagogue. Here we are at the Jewish cemetery, a place of great sanctity for the Jewish people. The first grave in Livingston town back in 1905 was in fact grave number 1 at the far end, Mr. Gelman, Abraham Gelman. This particular cemetery is now closed as the last Jewish person left the town. It was then closed up. But our traveling rabbi, Moshe Silverhaupt, came through, and with his work and guidance we've been able to get it to this wonderful level where people come through and visit the graves. It's custom in the Jewish tradition to put a stone on the grave as you go past. It's like saying, I've been here and I've left a message. And you can see the wonderful plaque we've had installed here, which just gives you an outline of the Jewish involvement in the area. We're now at what became the heart of the Sussman Empire. That is the Mulabezi railway line. They were trading in cattle and in timber by this stage. And so what we have here is a 2-in-1. This is the first railway museum in the country and the first Jewish museum in one.
The Jewish Museum opened its doors to the general public in September 2013, just to narrate the history of the Jews, those who settled in Zambia. They came a long time ago, in the early 1920s, most of them. They came through Zimbabwe from Victoria Falls. By 1905, coming up with the opening of the railway line, which gave them an opportunity to start trading along the railway line up to Congo. So some of them from Livingstone, they went to settle in Lusaka and Kabwe in the Copper Belt. Lusaka and Kabwe, then in the Copper Belt up to Congo here. So these are the areas where the Jewish communities were able to settle. Why in the Copper Belt? There were already mushrooming industries that were able to give them business, like the opening of the mines there. They were also trying to bring some multi-industries along the line of rail, which gave them business. Now, the coming up of setting this museum here is just to appreciate their contributions in terms of the local, their contributions to the local community, their contributions in terms of economic, social, and political. So the history covers the entire Zambia. Otherwise, it opened its doors in 2013 in September. So as we enter inside the Jewish Museum, we will be able to follow their chronological history. This was the first Jewish wedding which was conducted here in Livingstone by the Annie Green family and the Harry Sussmans in 1910. The first Jewish wedding in northern Rhodesia by then. Yes, otherwise all these activities, they are narrating the history of Livingstone for the Jews that were settling here. You can see these were one of the early shops, which was for the Grill General Outfitters in Livingstone around 1910. You can even see. Unfortunately, these buildings are no longer in existence, but as for this one and that Capital Theatre, this one, when you go right to the center of Livingstone town, you are able to see the building. So, in short, it's just narrating the history of Livingstone. What did they come to do? For how long? That's the history for the Livingstonians.